South region, anchored by the 1 seed, the reigning, defending national champion Florida Gators, as Florida seeks to go back to back. Florida, the favorite to come out of the region, plus 165. Houston, the 2 seed in this region, plus 250. Illinois, a banger 3 seed at plus 310. Vandy at 11. Nebraska also at 11, as Fred Hoiberg likes to get the Cornhuskers their first ever NCAA tournament win. Now, North Carolina is the 6th seed in this region, but remember, Carolina is without Caleb Wilson for the rest of the season, and Caleb Wilson is going to be a top pick in the NBA draft. So don't confuse it, right? Duke has Caleb Foster, Carolina has Caleb Wilson. Both look like they'll be out for the entire NCAA. Definitely Caleb Wilson, probably Caleb Foster. Pivot points here in this region. The first one we obviously have to discuss. What if it's Florida against Vanderbilt in the Sweet 16? Because, maybe Nebraska can get there, but I'm just kind of putting myself in the shoes of a lot of people that'll be filling out brackets and placing bets. I can't imagine that there's going to be a ton of enthusiasm for Nebraska to beat Vanderbilt. Can it happen? Of course. Also, Vandy could lose to McNeese. Also, Nebraska could lose to Troy. It's possible, right? But my sense is that many people will have an SEC tournament semifinal rematch in the round of 16 with Vandy against Florida. I do think, for what it's worth, Iowa in the 9-8 game in that region, Iowa the 9, Clemson the 8. I do like Iowa, and I'll give some first-round bets later in the show. I love Bennett Sturtz, Iowa's point guard. I do like Iowa over Clemson. Do you think Vandy can beat Florida again? Not only did Vandy beat Florida in the SEC tournament, but these two teams played at Vandy back on January 17th, and Florida won that game 98-94. So Vandy has played them really tough and close the first time and then beat the brakes off Florida the second time. I think that is very fascinating. Bottom half of the region. Unfortunately for North Carolina, I can't see the Tar Heels doing much of anything in this region without Caleb Wilson. It's not even their fault. Like, what are they supposed to do? Like, best player goes down. Tough to imagine a team being able to win in March. I do think VCU will be a trendy upset pick, and maybe they will pull the upset. I like Carolina in that game to beat VCU. Now, if we get a 2005 NCAA championship rematch in the round of 32, which would be Carolina against Illinois, I do think we would get a different result than we got in that game over 20 years ago. I think Illinois would wreck Carolina in the second round if they played. And I do believe that we are standing on the precipice of 2 exceptionally fun Sweet 16 games in this region. The first is the aforementioned Florida against Vandy, where I think Florida would overwhelm Iowa in the second round. And then Houston against Illinois in the bottom half of the region. I am marinating on a take. And I am contemplating a bet. The take and the bet is that Houston goes back to the Final Four. Is that Houston beats Illinois. And I'll say this about that matchup. Illinois' upside is to go to the Final Four. It absolutely is. And I'm not trying to discount the Illini. I trust Houston's defense more than I trust Illinois' defense. And if it's Houston against Florida, a national championship game rematch from last year, if we get that in the regional final, Houston's guard play, led by Kingston Flemings, who's going to be a top 10 pick in the NBA draft, I think could be enough to get the Cougs past the Gators this time. They would have rather had it last year in the national championship game. But yeah, if it's Houston against Florida, I think I'm going to like Houston. And God have mercy on my soul for that prediction. So I'm contemplating Houston to the Final Four out of the South region. You bet on this Monday. Nick Kostos to Westwood One Sports. Got some YouTube comments rolling in. How about our buddy Michael Wynn? Illinois to the Final Four. Says the Illini shoot the three well, one of the tallest teams in the nation. I think St. Mary's will upset Houston. I think A&M is going to beat Houston in the in the first round. St. Mary's will upset Houston, give them an easier path, and Florida guards won't be able to keep up in the Elite Eight. I feel like that's going to be a theme, Michael, even if I disagree with your thought on Illinois and Houston losing to St. Mary's. I do think a lot of people will make that case that Florida's guard play is going to cost them in this tournament, and I can't say that I disagree. And then we have our friend Chanel. Chanel is in northern Michigan with no power, cold as bleep, using a pot of boiling water for heat. But You Bet is on the air, and he is living life. Shout out to you, my friend. So too am I, and so too are we. Give you a couple thoughts on the West region to close the hour. Pro sports bettor Joey Knish will join us to start next hour here on You Better You